So, Lisa Nordén, thank you very much for joining us on the Swiss InSide podcast. Where am I catching you, actually?
Back home in Sweden, about 45 minutes north of Stockholm, at the
And
coast.
okay, and do
Yeah,
you already had some training this morning, or?
yeah. I had some like a short. It's not early. It's 10 o'clock, but it's early enough not to have like a big session before. But I had a run session
Okay.
and like a tracking session with my dog,
Ah, nice.
prepping up for like a quiet hour so I can, not
Uh-huh.
having the dog to poke my attention the whole time.
Yeah, walking him to sleep for four
Exactly,
hours.
but walking him to sleep doesn't work. You need to give him like actually work for the head.
Okay.
So we did, when you put out a track.
Mm.
So I bring him to the forest, tie him to a tree, and then I walk like a 1K loop, put out some treats in my tracks,
Yeah.
and then I come back to the dog and I have like a little reward at the end of the loop.
Oh,
And then he
nice.
starts searching. So then he goes back in my tracks and he follows around and he uses his nose and he gets really tired from the sniffing. So
Nice.
that's like, it's a lot of fun. It's different, but it's a lot of fun.
Everyone listening should go right away to Lisa's Instagram channel and follow her for more Leo content because this
Exactly.
dog is amazing.
Oh, he's a bit of a bitch too, really. He's just the character. On Instagram, you only see the cute stuff.
Yeah.
But he needs his, just like a triathlete, he needs his training or he becomes a difficult person. So
Okay.
I can
Okay.
like identify quite a bit with Leo.
Nice. But that's also quite a good opposite to training, or it's like.
It is exactly like I think there's like these two parts. It's something different. So it's
Mm,
almost like if they would ask me, what's your hobby?
mm,
Before I never had any hobbies. Like, I don't have time for hobbies. I'm a triathlete.
yeah.
But the dog is fun because it's like he needs you. And if you feel like dog training, you're not looking at your phone, you're not having your thoughts anywhere else. Like you need to be in the moment doing whatever you do. And I
Yeah.
think that's really good for like, just bringing the brain into something different and doing
Mm,
something that's very rewarding. It also
mm,
takes you into the forest or into like, places that are good for you in so many ways.
yeah. So Leo puts you into balance
It
also.
does. Yeah. It's funny sometimes, like everyone, like maybe once a fortnight we do training groups, like you would attend a swim class, but like with the dog training. And
Mm,
you go into the pitch like 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. And if my boyfriend is there, who would like, oh, that dog was really good. And I was like, I have no idea because the only thing I could do was like focusing on what I'm doing and what Leo's doing. And I have
yeah.
no idea what anyone else around me is doing. And
Yeah.
I think that's really useful, just to like really zone yourself in to do one thing.
Yeah.
And you have this, not a person, but a creature that demands your 100% attention.
Yeah.
In one way, that's what we do when we train as well, right? Like if you're in your LT1 zone doing long efforts or something, that's where your full attention is going.
Yeah.
But it's nice to bring that into a different area where it's like, it's not
Yeah.
about my profession anymore. It's something that I choose to do because it's fun.
Yeah, that's so cool because yeah, it's also about focus, it's about balance, about everything. So it's on the one side it's the opposite of training for triathlons, but on the other side it benefits. It's a benefit for you too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
The good thing with being on the bike is the bike doesn't say, Lisa, hey, you're really boring today. Lisa, you don't have any focus. I don't want to ride with you anymore, or I'm going to go really slow just to protest. The bike never says that. The bike just do whatever you do. The
yeah.
dog is more honest and gives you more feedback.
True. Ah, so good that you mentioned the bike. We need to get. It's a great topic, and we can touch on it
Yeah,
later too.
because that's a
Again,
bit more what you work with, right? The bike.
yeah,
It's not a
yeah,
dog podcast.
yeah, true. But we should do a dog podcast
We should
soon.
do.
um, yeah. So as we say in the beginning of this podcast, always is like that we are the podcast that makes you faster. And you're a person that is known that you love technology and optimizing your position on the bike. Um, has there ever been an aerodynamic change that felt like the holy grail?
Oh, well, there's been so many. That's the problem. So remember, I started triathlon when there was like dinosaurs walking around the world.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more basic. When I did the WTCS, or the what do you call, like the World Series that was called back then, we
Yeah.
didn't have any wind tunnel testing, or we didn't even do bike fits. We had a coach that were like, oh, I think you're sitting a little bit too high, or we need to change this, and
Oh,
we were just
okay.
like poking around a bit in training to see
Yeah.
what worked.
Mm.
We had, the small tri bars at the front for the drafting races, but
Yeah.
then you see pictures, and basically there's no difference with sitting in a hood or sitting in a tri bars, because the body position is exactly the same. So I was coming from that kind of triathlon. I started doing non-draft races like the LA Triathlon or the Dallas Triathlon, which was part of the Lifetime Fitness.
Yeah.
And basically back then, my first Dallas Triathlon, which had a $80,000 first win prize.
Whoa.
So that was when I founded my company, because I was like, I need to do something with the prize money, because I can't just like bring it into Sweden.
Yeah.
Then I traveled to LA, and I had a bike organized from Stevens, which was my bike sponsor at the time,
Mm.
because they had a time trial bike at not the Eurobike, but the Interbike that was in
Okay.
LA at the time. So then I took the bus from the hotel downtown LA out to like Huntington Beach, picked up the bike from a bike shop, rode it back because I couldn't bring the bike on the bus.
Yeah.
And that was my time trial bike to use in the race, because time trial bikes were faster. But in that process, I'm just picking up a bike from the expo with no bike fit, no aerodynamics, nothing. And that's the bike that I rode. So
Yeah.
that was like, and also same with when I won the Hy-Vee triathlon back in 2012,
Yeah.
that bike was shipped from Specialized to the hotel. And I unbuilt it in the hotel room,
Yeah.
tried, oh, this feels okay. It was quite windy, so I chose not to ride. What did I change? I didn't use a disc. Like I kind of changed something. If it was like, even I took my road bike, but with a disc wheel or something, because I wasn't confident on the time trial bike, because I spent basically no time on it. I didn't own a time trial bike. I just
Yeah.
picked one up for the races. So if you come from that and then you move into, what you see today on Instagram, that where every professional is in the wind tunnel or the velodrome and does
Yeah.
not one, but 2 or 3 bike fits during the year to
Yeah.
prep for the season. It's like a whole new game. And I think the aerodynamic testing, so when I started, that was for the very best in the world.
Mm.
They could afford the testing because they were probably sponsored or the team helped them with the testing. Today, it's available for everyone. Like
Yeah.
if you're an age grouper, you can quite affordable go down, test your position. You can do some, even in your local bike shop, you could probably do some aerodynamic testing, or you go out
Yeah.
on the road and you have those onboard testing devices. So I think like how the testing now is available for everyone obviously makes everyone more aware of what are the games and what is aerodynamics.
True.
And also that there's no one size fit all, because I think that's how I kind of grew up.
Mm.
We had the fact of this is aerodynamic. And then you're just trying to fit into that mold. Now, like you can have a straight back, you can have a rounded back, you can have straight tri bars, you can have angled tri bars.
Yeah. Super
Uh,
individual.
yeah, it's very, and even like what we tested last year with the bottles, we come from like, 2 bottles in the front works best for most
Mm.
people. Didn't
Mm.
work for me. So you kind of have to test yourself to see what works for you on the bike with your current body type and position.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was not a straight answer question, but it's like so much has happened. And
Yeah.
just the
True.
fact that you have a podcast talking about aerodynamics now, that would not have existed back when I started doing triathlon.
So basically, time was the holy grail in aerodynamics, because during or in this time period from riding the bike that you picked up at the expo to today, it's like so many things happened that there are so many things. But that directly leads me to the next point. It's like, what are your most wanted aero gains? Is it like, or not gains? Let's say gadgets. Is it wheel suit?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, like wheels obviously is very important, right?
yeah.
Bike frame. You
Mm.
want to have a bike frame that tests pretty good, because you don't want to have a big penalty before you even get on the bike. So
Mm.
obviously, like the basic equipment, not dependent on yourself, that has to be fast. And that is quite easy. If you're a customer, it's quite easy to do your research and find out like what is the fast frame, what is the fast wheel, and it's not going to change so much with yourself on the equipment. So that's like number one, right? Number two is, I think what we found the most when we do testing, it's like the position. And it's not just, okay, what's the position from the bike fitter? It's what's the position you can hold, and what's the position you can hold for 180 kilometers. And it's quite a big step. Like when you come from the bike fit, this is optimal fit. It looks really good. You take a screenshot from that, the video, or you take a photo. And it's like, oh, this is amazing. And then you see people out on an Ironman course, sitting up, drinking, stretching the backs, moving the head, looking up, looking down. It's like, okay, that's all your gains just disappeared.
Yeah, that's me in the last race I had. So
yeah. And also I think for myself, like what I'm most interesting at the time, because I started doing long course after a stint into cycling. So for a couple of years, I had one bike, which was the old Scott bike, that I can use both for UCI races and also for the triathlons. Okay. So I moved my my saddle position a little bit because it was different sets of rules. And then I wanted to be as low as possible, because that's also what I learned before. Being low makes you aero. And now what I'm trying to figure out is like, how high can I be and still be aero? Like, where is the penalty higher than the gains from the open hip and the more power? And I think what we've seen in the last couple of years, if you look at, for example, Laura Philipp, you have a position that's now quite different from if you looked at Sebastian Kienle 10 years back. There's like just a massive shift in how the rider is positioned on the bike. And I think that's really interesting, because then you talk more about the relationship between the power and the aerodynamics, and where is the sweet spot where you get the most out of yourself.
Yeah, also comfort plays a role, I guess.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
180 kilometers.
Yeah. Can you sit still? Can you maintain the position? Can you push good watts? And can you still move fast?
Yeah. You are the professional, because you're holding the Ironman World record bike split in 4:21:15, and many triathletes only talk about watts and aero positions and everything. Is there something about your position that puts you like in a flow state, that you can know, okay, now I'm in flow, I can go with this power for 180K?
I think also what's underrated is pacing when you talk about power. So that course, for example, was Western Australia, where I went for the world record. And the course was quite a few out and backs. And the way the wind was, that you always had some kind of crosswind. So in the beginning, I was like, this is not a fast course, because with that many U-turns, that's going to slow you down and you're going to have to accelerate. But because we had so many crosswinds, you actually always could maintain a good pace. But then you have to make the decision, when do you push harder and when can you save watts? So that's more when the focus is, how fast am I going? Okay. And that's where I learned a lot from working with Matt Bottrill. So we had a lot of talk about like the pacing strategies and when to push, and also when to push through the Ironman, because 180 k's is a very long way to push.
It is.
We had 2 laps, so you have to be kind of tactical. And I always found if I have more gas in the second loop, that's where I can make up time on the opposition. So for me, it's like being patient, but also use the speed. And then if you can use the speed even more the second loop, that's, puts you in a great position. You're probably going to ride really fast. Yeah. But so I trained with the Norwegians for almost 3 years. And then we talked a lot about average power, not normalized, but average. And I did 2 UCI World Championships, one with the Norwegians and one with Philip on the bike on the time trial. And I wanted to have the highest average watts that I could. That was for me like, okay, this is a great performance. And that's how I kind of rated my time trials, not on the speed, which is kind of weird, like in hindsight, because how you use the speed when you push in the hills, when you have tailwind, when you have headwind, makes a huge difference. So I think also what I learned, more than being more aerodynamic, is also learning when to push.
Yeah.
And I think that's, as an age group, is something you have to maybe have a little bit of thought into. Because pushing same watts in the tailwind as into the headwind is quite stupid. And you can actually relax your legs a little bit in the tailwind because you're moving fast. And moving fast is going to require more energy.
Yeah.
If you're in the tailwind, then you get a bigger gain from it. So for me, yes, it's about flow in the time trial position and being comfortable and finding like a good push position. Like normally I would pull a little bit in the tri bars. I would like pull on the tri bars, which would push me downwards. And it was also give me like a good, like something to push against with the legs, because you have that like traction point in the front. But then like making sure you're pushing at the right time is kind of number one.
That's a great tip. You always see on Instagram, like, yeah, that's my average power, like, or my FTP or whatever, like, and going with the flow, I guess. And regarding speed is a great tip, because no one talks about, okay, you have tailwind, relax a bit. It's always like, go as hard as you can for as long as you can.
Yeah.
So,
and for me, it's like, so you see a lot of posts on Instagram, like, oh yeah, I hit my highest average watts on this race, and that's like the PB, and you want to see the gains in how much watts you push.
Yeah.
For me, if I can come back in an Ironman and push less watts, that's brilliant.
That's a win.
That would be like a big win. Like, lowest watts ever. Now I'm ready for the marathon. Not like highest watts, because that would make me a little bit concerned for the next 3 hours.
Highest watts is for Swift.
Exactly.
Lowest watts is for racing.
But even for Swift, like I did some Swift racing back just around COVID, right? And I would be shocked because like I have my average power is so high, and I'm stronger than these other girls. Like I was racing Swedish Cup, which I'd normally just smash if I'd go in real life, and they smashed me because they knew how to play the game and when to save energy. And I was like having this massive power output, but not winning any races. So even on Swift, like you have to know how to push.
Yeah, it's not the real world.
No.
Yeah, but we all remember this legendary photo finish, going back to 2012 at the Olympics against Nicolas Spirik. Looking back at this race, is there any tiny detail that could have made a difference that you can, for example, have today?
Apart from bigger boobs? Because that would have made a difference in the sprint finish, right? In the photo finish.
True.
And I could afford that today. There's a bit of a weight penalty, but I think it would have outgained the weight penalty. No, my goal for the London Olympics was to walk away feeling that I had emptied the tank and that I have done everything in my power to get the best out of myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have a very smooth ride into the games. I had a few injuries, not a few, I had quite a lot of injuries.
Oh, shit.
I was up on the Swedish press conference before going out on the last altitude camp. And then I had a tear in my calf and I couldn't run. And I found myself basically lying to the journalists saying, everything is fine.
Okay.
I think you're going to be in good shape. And
playing the mind games.
Yeah. And we went up to the altitude camp in Davos. And the strategy was to run as little as possible and to skip all the fluff in training. So I did more on the bike. Sometimes I warmed up on the bike to just run the main effort and skip everything else. I also had a bit of a knee niggle that came up in Kitzbühel, which was the last race before the Olympic Games. So I managed that with an injection before, and I felt very unsure of my fitness and where I was. Yeah. I also think in hindsight, like what we did with the running, making sure we got the right amount of high quality workouts with the right amount of speed, but skipping the extra 50-minute run or the 30-minute run or these like little nice bits that makes you feel confident and you feel like you run fit. But that kind of gave me an edge and gave me a little bit more speed that I might hadn't had if we didn't do that. So I came into the Olympics and I was underrated. I hadn't really performed all year, but I knew I had some kind of fitness. And that race was just it was perfect. It went. I was really close to make the front pack in the swim.
Yeah.
We were all on the same place on the pontoon, like all the favorites. I think 1 to 10 ranked was staying at the very outer edge of the pontoon next to each other, and we were swimming about the same pace. And if you have people in a row swimming about the same pace, you're actually pulling each other back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you see on the helicopter shot, you can see like we're not really getting out as fast as we probably should have had.
Yeah.
And I just missed the break for the front pack at that first left-hand turn on the buoy. So that I could have done a little bit better. Probably wouldn't have changed anything because the whole race did come back together before the run.
Yeah.
And the run is one of the best in my life. I think we ran at 33:40.
Yeah.
And this is before the super shoes, right? So that's basically running barefoot back at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
But and also I had one stumble in the sprint.
Okay.
My coach was like, Nicola, we all know Nicola is an amazing sprinter.
Yeah.
He was like, you're gonna have to let her start. Let her start the sprint. Let her take the initiative, and then once she's like accelerating, you go with her, and she's gonna be surprised because she's not gonna expect anyone to sprint with her. And just as the sprint started, because then you take a right-hand turn and a left-hand turn into the red carpet, to the blue carpet, and that carpet is like it's on like a small board on grass because you deviate from the tar road, and it's a little bit like wobbly, and you step on this kind of pontoon surface.
Yeah. So it's not
bit.
even completely flat. It's really
no. You have a little
wobbly.
bit of a like uneven surface. And I know I took a little bit of a wrong step, lost balance a little bit before I got going again, and maybe that's where I lost it.
Okay.
But it's the best sprint of my life. And even like 4 weeks before in Kitzbühel, she outsprinted me like I was, standing still. So I did a lot of work just the last month to prepare for that last sprint.
Nice. So yeah, that was what I thought. There's no like specific thing that you could have done or that you could do different today because it was the same game for everyone also back then. And it's also really, you can be in the top form and as fit as you can ever be, or you can be a little bit broke, have some little stitches. You just have to have a good day on this day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And that's what's so difficult with Olympic Games. You
Yeah.
get one shot and it's every 4 years.
Yeah.
You can be on amazing form, but
Yeah.
something can be a little bit off that day, and that's your day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's taken away from you then, but going away with a silver medal is what I think a reason to get a tattoo. Do you got one?
No, I have no tattoos.
So no Olympic
it's
rings.
indented in my heart forever.
Okay. That's cool.
And sometimes you have those moments. This is before Instagram, right? I didn't have Instagram around 2012. But when you take that, like, you have the mental picture. So you stand, like, it's quite unreal. Like, you walk into the Olympic Games and you stay in the village, and the whole time you have the TV cameras on in the village showing different arenas. And every day in any arena, there's like a presentation with new Olympic medalists. And you have this little song signature for the presentation, and you see the flowers. And suddenly I found myself in the Olympic Games on a podium hearing this like signature music and getting like the flower bouquet. And you have a grandstand full of Swedish flags and the Prime Minister and the whole Olympic Committee and my family and the whole town from where I was staying is like on the grandstands making noise.
Yeah.
And it's like, geez, this is me. And I'm standing, on this podium in the Olympic Games. And it's really unreal because I never grew up expecting that or wanting that. Like, I grew up as a horse rider, not as an athlete.
Yeah.
So for me to like make that trip in quite short amount of time was like, oh my God. I remember back in 2007, I was in Hamburg and I won the under 23 world champs, Olympic distance. And I remember I was also like in complete shock because I'd never done anything like it before. And I was on the podium and I saw the Swedish flag go up and I heard the Swedish anthem. And I was like, Lisa Nordén, you remember this for the rest of your life because it's never, ever going to happen again. This is just a fluke. It's something that's gone wrong in the universe and they mixed up the cards and you happen to stand here. But just remember it because it's never going to happen again. And it was a little bit of that feeling again in London. It's like, geez, someone did a mistake somewhere because I'm standing here. So I walked away from there just feeling over the moon, and I was so happy. And Sweden is a small country, and if you win an Olympic medal for your country, it's a big thing back here. So that was like my breakthrough into being someone people recognized on the street.
Yeah.
Like, you walk into the supermarket and there's an old lady like, oh, I really, she's now following the World Series and asking about the overall standings before the grand final. I was like, geez, you know who I am, and you know about triathlon. It was really weird and quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like so crazy great. Is this still this picture that you have in your mind? Is it something that still drives you, that still gives you motivation and power?
I think it more gives me a feeling of contentment. Can you say that? Like to feel proud and something that I achieved in my life, as something you put on the CV, something you worked really hard for. So that itself is maybe not what drives me forward, but it makes me feel content as a person.
Yeah.
And for me, it was almost a turning point, because until then I was Lisa who did a weird sport, and where people asked like, but what are you gonna do when you grow up? What are you like? What profession are you gonna, what are you gonna become? I know you're doing sport now, but like really, like, when you're done playing around, what are you gonna become? But the Olympic Games kind of changed that, because from then on it was okay to be a triathlete.
Yeah.
And it was okay to do this as a full-time job, and I got respect for it.
And it was even
as a
harder back then.
professional athlete, I felt like, oh wow, I didn't expect it, but this is really a place where I want to be.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was much harder back then to realize this as a real job. Only like 5 people or so in the world could live from this sport, or could name themselves like, I'm a professional triathlete, and people are like, okay, that's your job. So and people and age group, not age group, young professionals are still struggling with it. So so it's amazing.
But it changed like back then. So remember, I come from a small town in Sweden, and the only way to be noticed is if your local paper make an article about you.
Yeah.
Then the next step is if national TV or a national newspaper is doing a feature on you, or in doing a home visit or doing a thing. Today, everyone is their own PR house, or like they're doing in media stuff, and everyone is their own marketing bureau. We didn't have that back then. So the only way to become noticed was to do something amazing in results.
Yeah.
And when we were at camp with Darren in Australia, he was like, I guess we had Facebook. It was like, don't spend time on that. Like, don't try to create sponsor things that are small and that, doesn't matter. You spend your time resting and training. The result will come and your money will come. But it was like in that order. Today, it's almost like you start the other way. You start with the marketing, because that will give you money. And if you have money, then you can be an athlete, and then you can go to races. But I'm quite old school the way I was growing up, that, this is add-on at the end, which is different from but also it was good because we didn't have a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
The only pressure was from ourselves, from the expectations. We didn't have a lot of like outside pressure, apart from media.
Yeah, it was more like in the scene and for yourself. Yeah.
And also like back to that camp in Davos 2012, we had no idea what anyone else was doing.
Yeah.
Like we were in altitude, our internet was like going down to the train station with your laptop and stealing their internet from the train station. And you sat there 15 minutes because then it got too cold and you got back up to the apartment and you read a book. We didn't know what Emma Moffat was doing, or Erin Densham or Spirig, apart if you had someone who had visited their camp that came and visited our camp. Then you could hear like a little talking in the background of, she's really fit or she's been injured.
Most wanted person back then. The one that visited all the camps.
Exactly. That's where the information came from. I guess today, like, too much. And you can also feed, if you want to feed information to your competitors or to others, you can like put something up that, makes them believe, or you could be quiet, or you could tell them everything. And it's a very different area today.
Yeah. Has this race back then fundamentally changed the way you raced since then? So after you won
Uh,
the medal?
I guess I walked out of the pontoon feeling a bit more prouder
Mm.
because once you're an Olympic medalist, you're always going to be an Olympic medalist. It's like a title that comes with you.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the 2012 was amazing because after London, I won the WTCS in Stockholm. That was the first WTCS on Swedish ground. There was 60,000 people around the castle downtown Stockholm, which was like incredible. And that race, I remember I raced it like, this is my race to win. Like,
Yeah.
excuse me, move out of the way. I'm coming through. I have to win this.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was so motivated and I felt like almost entitled to winning that race. And I was in really good form and I just like surfed the flow into the race and it was incredible with the support of everyone who came out to watch it.
Yeah.
So that year, 2012, I also won the World Series. So I had so many good races. I had outsprinted Annie Haug in Yokohama for another World Series win, and I just had the flow into the end. But then I got a lot of injuries because that year kind of tipped me over, and I had probably since 2009, so 9, 10, 11, and 12 were really, really hard years. This is also like the old school time where we tried to be very light.
Yeah.
Because a light person is a fast runner.
Yeah.
We did train really hard, but we didn't eat or fuel enough.
Yeah.
And we were doing short course. And in short course, it's less than 2 hours and you don't need to take on too much carbs.
Yeah.
So I raced on one gel maximum.
Jesus.
Sometimes, not even a sports drink in my bottle. Sometimes like half a bottle and one gel. Sometimes you forgot about the gel.
Yeah.
And in training, it was just the same. Plus, you sometimes left, big session, be like, now, Lisa, don't overeat because you need to lose some weight.
Yeah.
And that with the hard training and the amount of stress that we had with all the races and stuff, I was running to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I had a spiral of years where I was different injuries year after year after year. So basically from London to Rio, I was just struggling.
Yeah.
I had some good
like being
races.
on the edge.
Yeah, exactly. 2012 was on the edge. I had this amazing timing of being super fit, getting everything together. But then also, as I moved back to Sweden, I had a lot of obligations. I changed coach, and suddenly I was like, now I can actually train more because I felt like my old coach held me back a little bit. So I spent like 100% into the wall and didn't understand why I got all those injuries. Because we never treated it as like a stress problem or like an overload. It was more treated like biomechanical injuries.
It was always the body. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had Achilles injury 2016 that took me out for 2017. I barely raced at all. And then I started cycling and I cycled 2019, 2020. I was at the World Champs with a Swedish team. And then I had like a little bit of longing to go back into triathlon again. And I started working with Philip Stipe. And he saw my training regime under the Norwegians and he was like, oh girl, like we have to pull you back. And he, to be honest, he saved my career, because I would never had come back into sport and proper running if I would have continued like I done before.
Yeah.
And the timing with Kona hitting 2020, the year I started working with Philip, gave us 1 year to reset the body and restart without having any races forcing it at a faster pace.
Yeah.
And then from going back into Ironman 2021, I actually been fairly injury free and holding it together, having a different body from what I had before. So that's been quite an amazing trip to do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The jail thing nowadays, people take a jail before they go to the track. So yeah, it's crazy. Back then, it's always like, so many things
I
changed.
think everyone who watches the World Series, remember back in the days, we raced on no fuel, with no super shoes.
Sure. And now we talked a lot about the past, and last year was a pretty hard year for you. don't know if you want to talk about it or touch on it. What everybody is talking about what happened, but what I want to know is how you came back from it, or how you managed to find your strengths again, and what could be an advice for people who are going through something similar.
Exactly. I think from my point of view, it was hard. Like from a human point of view, it's quite easy. Like you give yourself time, and it's going to be better, and you try again, and life is life, and you go back to work.
Yeah.
For me, the work is with my body. It was kind of hard to like, okay, what's expected from me now? Like, what do I need to do, and how should I act in this position? Because the body is my work.
Yeah.
And if I was at a normal office, no one would have known before, because you don't tell people before 12 weeks. And maybe you would have told some people, but you can quite easily just not give yourself out that way. And then you go back, you might take 1 day off or 2 days off, and you go back to work, and that's like a healing process, and people just treat you like the same. I couldn't just go back to work.
True.
And I actually had, the year before, I did Ironman Australia, where I was in really good shape. That was early December. And then I took a long break because I raced 4 Ironmans the year before. So I felt my body was a bit tired. And I got pregnant in January. So I was also like, oh, my body's probably like, not feeling too bad because I got pregnant that quick after the race. And then I felt really sick. So I had like, it wasn't, because I started Googling, like, how much can I train? And, are there any dangers? And can I train like before? And I was like, we actually talked about doing testing and stuff with the Swedish Institute of Sport to get some more data on pregnancy and hard training, and, just to track everything. But then like, quite quickly I was like, oh, I can't train that hard because I'm not feeling so well.
Yeah.
And I got quite sick. And then when I started to feel better and I could go back into training, that's when I realized later that I actually lost the embryo.
Yeah.
Because it was, I think it probably died around, was it 7 or 8 weeks? But then it took some time before the miscarriage.
Yeah.
And that's where the miscarriage got quite dramatic, because then there's a lot of bleeding and you have to like do some scraping and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was then mid-April. So imagine like from end of December to mid-April, my training had been like very, very, very low level.
Yeah.
So it's like, shoot, like I can't go out there and do an Ironman now, or do like, it's going to take some time to build everything up again. And I remember, because I had a talk with my coach to do Swedish nationals, because that was going to be around week 20 or 21. This is, sorry, for time trial, cycling time trial. Like, maybe I can do that. Like, that would be pretty cool to do pregnant. Yeah. So I had this like idea already that like, could I do it? Yeah. And then after the miscarriage, I was like, okay, I think we had 6 to 7 weeks. Like, can we make this a goal? Like, I can enter, and we can just have that as a vague goal to work against. Because I felt like I had 2 options. I could just call the year quit and not do anything, or I can use sport as a support to make me feel better. Yeah. And to start with one sport, not have the pressure of 3 sports, but with one sport, and just because I felt quickly that training made me feel better. And I really enjoyed training, and it was nice to feel my body like recovering. I had a reset, so all my old watts were like old. It didn't really matter, and you can start from like scratch with building yourself back up.
True. Yeah.
We always, in the past 2 years, we've done testing, like home testing. It's called something like, it's like a submax something test that you easily can do back home. They had the reference where I needed to improve around like 40 watts in the one level.
In how many weeks?
7.
Okay.
It was like, my coach was like, oh, yeah, we can try, but it's not gonna work. Yeah. And I didn't have a time trial bike for the nationals, so I went on Facebook Marketplace and I bought a frame. And then I went to Matt Bottrill and was like, can you make this bike as fast as you can? And can you fit me on it? So we did all these tweaks on a fairly poor bike, but we made it like aero enough and had a good position on it. And I started to train just with the time trial in mind. Yeah. And the time trial was in June, and I won it by 1 second. So that was like that project in itself.
Yeah.
It was like a small enough project, but still a meaningful project.
And yeah.
And it made me enjoy the process and have fun with sport again. And I
Yeah.
found that sport helped my like mental health and helped my body to get back.
Yeah.
And I was quite careful not making it into something where I could hide
Mm.
from the pain,
Yeah.
but to support like a healthy way of feeling about life again.
Yeah.
And then after that, I had the invitation for London as a wild card.
Mm.
So like, oh, that's another really nice goal to have. And I just like took it one race by one race at the time.
Yeah. So it sounds like also a healing process, like, and that's the most amazing point about sports, I guess, in my opinion, that this is really something steady in your life that you can, if you're healthy, what is the most important thing for everyone, you can carry on with you, and what's also healing you, and that's it sounds like this project and everything really healed you, and that's so amazing. That's great. And I guess you also had a lot of support from your family, your friends, and everyone around, and also the community. So
Yeah, I think for me as well, it was important to tell my story,
mm,
also to have an understanding for what I was doing.
yeah,
Because otherwise you have rumors and you have talk and like, oh, what's Lisa doing? You have sponsors asking like,
yeah,
why aren't you racing or what's the problem?
mm,
And people are judging your performance as well.
yeah,
So if you have been really good and suddenly you come to a race and like, what's wrong with Lisa? Like, is she old? Is she not motivated? Has she been injured? And
mm,
you might not have them loud, but you still feel the questions and the doubt from your
yeah,
surroundings. So then telling your story made me feel prouder racing, even if I knew that maybe I wasn't really where I would have wanted to be and where I should have been with 100% preparation.
yeah,
But it didn't really matter because if people knew my story, then they would still appreciate the pathway there and the work that I've done to get there.
yeah, and you also for yourself,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. And I
yeah,
had so much wonderful support.
yeah,
It was amazing. Yeah.
cool. And so now we have a new year. It's 225. It's early in the season. Can you already talk about the races you want to join this year, or is this still under under top secret?
It's not top secret. It's
Yeah.
locked into my safe. I have to kill you if I tell you. No, but it's to be honest at this part, you know, I'm not at the part of my career where I have 10 years ahead of me. So you
Mm,
start to like wind down and you have to decide like what matters. And really, what I found is a wonderful challenge is Hawaii.
mm,
So I know the path that I'm going is going to go to Hawaii with that in mind. And also found the older I get, the less races I can focus on.
mm,
Obviously, the Ironman World Series is an amazing challenge, and it's something new that I haven't been able to be a part of so far,
yeah.
and I would love to be a part of it. But then there's like a few different roads to take to get there.
Mm,
And to be honest, after last year, even if I did get going in the season, it has like my body just needed a big break after that year to also reset
yeah.
and catch up a bit. And I'm not going to be firing in South Africa. I'm going
Yeah.
to need a bit more time to be ready for the races.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Of
going to
course.
come out a little bit later and not in the early ones.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also one race I would love to go back to
Yeah.
is Ironman Sweden in Kalmar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't done that race, it's incredible. And I guess
Okay.
especially if you're Swedish and you do it, it's just it's mind blowing. It's the best Ironman race I ever done in my life.
I haven't done an Ironman now for 2 years. Yeah, almost 3 years. So I want to have this race to yeah, be my first Ironman afterwards. But yeah, let's see, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
only hear so many great stories about it. Yeah. So
It's so I did it the same year as I did Roth.
mm,
And Roth also is a race that everyone talks about. Roth is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
But you also have the logistics of Roth is quite complicated. And you only
mm,
realize when you get there, you have the swim venue. In the morning, you have the parking there. You have to go to the swim venue for your bike check-in. You have a different T2. You have a different finish line from everything else, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to Kalmar, and I stayed in the hotel, and I could walk like 50 meters to transition, 50 meters to the swim start, 20 meters to the restaurant, 10 meters to the square where the finish line was. And it's like, it's so small.
Yeah.
And you have all these people in the same place. So it feels like it's just boiling in the town.
Oh, that's so amazing. Not the average 30,000 steps before the race.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's insane the amount of walking you do before an Ironman.
All right. So, yeah, I'm happy to see you racing this year again. And we all are in a team. And yeah, fingers crossed for a lot of great performances. Last question already. If you had to race tomorrow with no data, no power numbers, no wind tunnel testing, and no aero helmets and stuff, just by feel, what would be the first thing you change or adjust?
Oh, that's a tricky question.
It really is. Like in case of power, or in case of enjoying the race more, or
I think I would feel a little bit nervous because, to be honest, all this data is giving us confidence.
True.
At the moment, maybe it's nice not to have the data because you wouldn't have any doubt. And I think I would go back to that Lisa Nordén from like 2010 in LA on the borrowed bike, where you have to be really in tune with your effort.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe today we forget that in tunement with the feeling and where you are in the race and the decisions that you take, and you base all the decisions of the data. And that's where you have some like real blow-ups or disappointment because the data isn't calibrated to your perfect day today.
Yeah.
So maybe we like race just a little bit more smarter in terms of your body capacity that specific day.
Yeah, that's a good one. Really,
that was a long minute of thought before.
Oh,
I have to edit that down.
No worries about that. I could cut it out. So again, thank you very, very much for taking time to talk about all of these topics. And I can only say from my side, or from our side at Swiss Side, that we are following your journey for a long time now. And we can say thank you for being so open about so many topics and being just an honest athlete and doing all this cool stuff you're doing. So yeah, thanks a lot. And what's left to say is have a great season and a happy weekend. It's Friday today,
Thank you.
Happy weekend.
So good to be part of this team, and I can't wait to see you in May in the wind tunnel.
Yeah, true. We meet you there. All right.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.